All right, welcome back to the Vendetta Sports Media Fantasy Show. This is episode 27. I'm going to be your host tonight. My name is Cayne Lander, at Cayne Lander on Twitter and Instagram. I'm joined here with Scott Logush. What are your Twitter handles and stuff again, Scott?
Instagram, Twitter, both the same at slogush52, SLOGUSH52.
Awesome. How you doing tonight, man? How are
Pretty
things?
good.
Pretty rough day for you today, eh?
I don't know. I got 4 posts out, so.
I mean, you got roasted pretty good, though.
I got 4 posts out, so.
Hey, he's focused. What can I say? Gotta
I
love
got
the
4 posts
production
out.
there.
I won the September competition. Overall,
Flying high right now.
net positive today.
Yeah, nobody's going to be able to bring you down on that one.
Not yet.
Alrighty. So news-wise, first thing we'll talk about the Joe Mixon extension. Obviously, huge contract extension. We got 4 years, $48 million, and ultimately that'll keep Mixon with the Bengals for the next 5 years. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you think about it. I like it. I think he's been probably one of the only bright spots on their team, except for maybe like AJ Green when he's healthy. And I think Zach Taylor's just doing the smart thing and kind of just locking up his best player here. You don't know how Joe Burrow's going to do. You're going to need a running back to probably carry the load, take the pressure off of him. So what are your thoughts on this, Scott?
Well, this is like one of my rule of thumb when it comes to running backs. You always have to take into account the salary cap. So if I can get 80% of Joe Mixon's production for 10% of the cost, I'm going to take that. Because at the end of the day, it's not whether the running back's worth that much. It's whether you can fit that into the salary cap. If there wasn't a salary cap, I wouldn't have an issue paying running backs. The reason I have an issue paying running backs is because if you can get close to that production, you can get 80, 90%, even 70% of the production of a running back for 10 or 20% of the cost. I'm going to go that route because it's a lot smarter cap-wise. Overall, right. You want to lock up a sure thing with a young quarterback, and there's really no sure thing on the Bengals outside of Joe Mixon right now.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, young coach, pretty much the only place to go is up for that team, really. And, I mean, as much as we, joke around about your opinion in your article yesterday about running backs, a lot of the time, sort of the league standards and how much people get paid aren't actually how much that player is worth. It's literally just like market value. And so that's why Kirk Cousins made however much money. He got way overpaid. That's why Jimmy Garoppolo got way overpaid. All these guys that maybe aren't sort of, you'd look at them and at a glance, it's not like, wow, this guy's worth $20 million a year. Or in Joe Mixon's case, like, you don't look at Joe Mixon and go, wow, this guy's worth $12 million a year. But I guess that's the price of doing business when your running back is pretty much like the only consistent part of your football team. Second news today, we got more developments on the Kamara situation in New Orleans. So today there was articles about how basically all the reports we got yesterday about Kamara holding out and all this stuff and him requesting a trade, basically Kamara and his agent came out today and said, that's not true. Like, none of that's true. I haven't been holding out. I've been in the Saints facility every day since the start of training camp. And I was just basically under the impression that we were negotiating a new deal. I didn't request a trade. I didn't request any of that. And basically all these reporters coming out and saying, this guy's basically like fucking off and not coming to camp and just, being a bad teammate. Basically, that's not true.
The thing with today is that the Saints said that they're open to trading. Now, Kamara and his agent can say whatever they want. Oh, we didn't request a trade. That doesn't matter. It's the same thing with Cam Newton a few months ago with the Panthers. The Panthers said, we have given Cam Newton permission to seek a trade. That's not saying that they asked for a trade. That's not saying they want to be traded. That's not saying they will be traded. It's simply putting it out there like, hey, this guy's available. If you want him, let's talk. And it comes back to my point about running backs again. If you can get 70, 80% of the production for 10, 20% of the cost, you do it because that's better cap-wise.
Right. And I definitely agree with you in the context of Kamara. First of all, we talked about it yesterday. I just like he's going to want a deal like Joe Mixon, and he's just not as good as Joe Mixon. And he doesn't have even close to the production that Joe Mixon has. And also the other thing is on the Saints, like, sorry to, undermine the running back and undermine Kamara, but on the Saints, like Drew Brees and Michael Thomas could probably get by with who do they have as a backup? Latavius Murray right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you pop Latavius Murray in there, probably doesn't take that much of a hit, to be honest with you. So,
and also, one of the bigger things is that, like, for the past couple years since Kamara came into the league, it was Michael Thomas and who else? They have Emmanuel Sanders now. So Alvin Kamara isn't as valuable as a pass catcher because they have a viable number 2 option now.
right. And like Emmanuel Sanders is also one of those guys that you can give him little short routes and count on him to break some tackles and get upfield too. So, I mean, definitely, I hope it ends up, where everybody's happy and whatever, but definitely sounds like Kamara is probably asking for too much. Otherwise, they probably would have signed him already.
Oh, yeah.
The Saints in the past have not been an organization that likes to mess around and let things go on as long as possible. So, another part of news is that Tyrell WIlliams placed on season-ending IR with a torn labrum today. So we hope he gets better. But a torn labrum, that's not a quick recovery. So he will be out for the rest of the season. Scott, what do you think this means for fantasy owners who planned on drafting maybe Tyrell WIlliams or really anybody else on the Raiders offense?
Well, this timing is kind of convenient because earlier today I put out my post on who the fuck is that guy, Hunter Renfrow, because now it's Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow. Like, those are the 2 guys for the Raiders. And I'd say this helps Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs. It helps their stock as well because those targets need to go somewhere. Those yards, those receptions, those touchdowns, they need to go somewhere. Because Derek Carr, for all the crap that we may have given him, he's a solid quarterback. He can get it done. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He's going to get the job done. So all those targets, catches, yards, all that production has to go somewhere. And it's going to be split however way it's going to end up. Whether it's Waller gets some extra touchdowns, Jacobs gets some extra yards and carries. And then we'll also get to really see what Henry Ruggs is made of because now he has no choice. He has to become the number 1 receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of pushes everybody up one spot, right? Because Tyrell WIlliams is probably going to be, in my opinion, he was probably going to be the number 1 guy there this year. And I just think that Derek Carr is going to figure it out as a quarterback. I just think it's really up to those receivers to, take this opportunity, especially Hunter Renfrow. Like, Hunter Renfrow is a guy that because of his size and sort of stature, he's always going to be overlooked. But I really think, like, just watching him from camp, watching him play, everything like that, I really think he can be like a Julian Edelman type player. He's that kind of guy. And I mean, this could be a great opportunity for him. So look for Hunter Renfrow in the later rounds of this draft, as well as Darren Waller. Last piece of news you wanted to talk about this one. Bill Belichick coming out saying Cam Newton is the hardest worker he's ever seen. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is far from the first time Bill Belichick has used this statement. He's used it all the time. Like, my piece went up. I'm assuming this is going to be posted on the 2nd, so it went up September 1st. Basically, like, this is just a throwaway line for Bill Belichick. It's like another coach saying, hey, look, we like what we're seeing. He's looking well. He's looking good. That's basically what it is for Belichick. Mm-hmm. But what it also does is it shapes the narrative in that if Cam Newton screws up, it's what happened to this great work ethic. It's like, what happened to this guy? Like, we hear Bill Belichick talking about this guy in camp. He's doing great. He's the hardest worker. And then if he just falls flat, it turns into, Cam, what the hell happened? Like, is he still hurt? Or those injuries, did they come back up? Did he take a hit wrong? And then it's also just more narrative spinning because what else can Bill Belichick say? He can't say, oh, this guy stinks, because then he looks like the dumbass who signed him and everyone else looks like a genius for passing on him. Instead, by saying this, it's the classic Belichick. It's the classic, oh, Belichick's a genius. Everyone else, what the fuck are you doing? it's just narrative spinning by Belichick.
So I think that what you said about like, oh, he's going to look like an idiot if for signing him if Cam Newton falls flat on his face. I disagree pretty heavily because, I mean, you know what the contract was. They got Cam Newton, who is a
Oh, for
former
nothing.
elite quarterback, for pennies on the dollar. Like they what are they paying him? 500 grand?
Not even a million's guaranteed.
Yeah, I think it's like even if I think he's set to make just over $1 million this year if
If he
he
hits like everything possible, like
Mhm.
MVP, Super Bowl MVP, everything like that, I think the most he can make is 7.5 million.
Yeah, which is absolutely unreal. And so to be honest, I don't think there's any scenario in which Bill Belichick looks stupid for signing Cam Newton. I think where this was maybe a miscalculated thing is so if Bill Belichick comes out and says Cam Newton's the hardest worker ever, right? So one. Two, Cam Newton clearly has the talent. He's been one of the most talented guys in the NFL for a long time. It's just whether or not he can put it together in any given season, right? And so if Cam Newton falls flat on his face, now it's like, okay, well, if he's the hardest worker ever and he's super talented like he is, it must be something Belichick and the Patriots are doing wrong to make him not produce. Because by Bill Belichick saying that, he's basically saying, yeah, our system works and he's going to be fucking awesome this year. So if that doesn't happen, I think it looks bad on Belichick after he came out and said this. Because it's if he falls flat on his face, it's one of two things. It's like, okay, either you were lying and you were just blowing smoke for Cam Newton, or your system doesn't work. So I think if Cam Newton falls flat on his face, Bill Belichick will have, some things to answer for with this question. Or with this quote, sorry. All right, so we'll get into the first segment of the fantasy show today. So obviously this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's no preseason for the NFL this year, and the preseason traditionally has been, for me at least, when I see rookies, especially offensive skill players like guys you'd be drafting in fantasy. For me, I always 95% of the time I see a great progression from game 1 to game 4. So every game you'll see significant improvements. And I was a big Johnny Manziel guy. You can roast me for it later, but you saw it with Johnny Manziel. You saw it with a lot of guys that were coming in and were sort of raw products. You saw it with Josh Allen. You saw it with a ton of guys. And so without a preseason this year, how do you think it will affect fantasy production for these rookies after not really having a chance to not only learn the playbook? Everybody's learned the playbook, but it's one thing to learn it, and it's another thing to be able to apply it in an actual game, especially in the NFL. The learning curve from college to the NFL is huge. So what do you think do you think this will change? Do you think this will affect rookie fantasy production this year? The main guys I have put down here, just maybe so we can focus the conversation a little bit, is Ruggs, Judy, CeeDee Lamb, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert.
I think that this is just going to absolutely tank rookies in terms of fantasy production in the beginning of the season, because you're 4 weeks behind, and then football at any level, practice is completely different from a game. Like, you can practice and all, and you can be great in practice, but until you're going to get up against someone who wants to just take your head off, you're not experiencing the real thing. Like, these rookies, they're not going to get their welcome to the NFL moment until in the regular season. Usually that's what the preseason's for. You get hit a bit, you get used to it, you start to catch on the speed, you start to learn, okay, this thing I worked in college isn't going to work anymore. I got to find something else to do. And also for quarterbacks, NFL Open is different than College Open. College Open is a couple yards of separation. NFL Open is a foot or two of separation. Like, in the NFL, you need to be able to process that. And also, like you said about Johnny Manziel, in college, Johnny Manziel was just a better athlete than everyone. Quarterbacks in the preseason, they start to realize, oh shit, I'm not the best athlete on the field. I can't do what I did in college. I can't run like I used to in college. I can't stiff arm people. I can't truck people. I got to learn how to play within the confines of this system simply because everyone else around me is a better athlete, and I need to both rely on my teammates and also know when to let a play die, when to not take a sack, when to not throw a stupid interception. And it's just that mental learning curve of those 4 preseason games.
Right. And I mean, I'm glad you brought the Johnny Manziel example up, because even though Johnny Manziel in college kind of looked different than Joe Burrow did, they did kind of have sort of similar tendencies and similar positives in their scouting reports coming out of college. And so for Joe Burrow, his sort of positives were he's athletic enough to extend the play, he's athletic enough to take off for 10 yards, and he's athletic enough to move around in the pocket and do what he has to do. So I think, well, first of all, we'll start off with this. Without a preseason, rookies are inherently 4 games behind on what they would be if there was a preseason. Even if it's like preseason football, it's nobody's going as hard as they would in a real game, whatever. Like Joe Burrow doesn't have that week 1 preseason game to go out and
Get drilled.
and throw 3 picks and learn, what it's like to get hit in the NFL and get used to that. And I really just think that you're going to see him get himself into a few bad situations. I think when you're going to college and some All-American linebackers don't even get drafted, and then you go to the NFL and you have linebackers running 4.5 on a game-to-game basis, I just don't think Joe Burrow has the athleticism to cut it for that. But I just think he's going to have to sort of develop that awareness of what's going on around him. And obviously that affects everybody on that team's value, because we're talking about a quarterback, right? AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Joe Mixon. And with Joe Mixon, I think if Joe Burrow does worse, it's actually better for Joe Mixon, because obviously they'll be running the ball more to try to take pressure off of him. But yeah, like there's no way all of these rookies come out and are as good as they would be in week 1 if they had a preseason. There's absolutely no way. The learning curve is too big.
Yeah, because games are completely different than a practice. In a practice, you touch the quarterback as a defensive player, like you're done. You just can't do that. In a game, and if you're a quarterback in a game, people are trying to take your head off. People are trying to take you out of the game. They're trying to put you on the ground. They're trying to make you essentially quit on your team and not want to stand in there and take hits. They're going to want to try to rush you. They're going to want to try to get you to say, okay, I don't want to get hits. Instead of waiting the extra half second for the route to develop, I'm just going to throw it away. Mm-hmm. So as a quarterback, you also need to speed up that mental processing, because it's one thing to be aware and terrified of the pass rush. It's another to be just completely oblivious to it. And that was the issue with Daniel Jones. Like, he was completely oblivious to the pass rush, and he had multiple fumbling problems because of that. In a game, there's just so many more aspects you need to account for, like down and distance, because yes, you can do those drills in practice, but you don't have that whole momentum of the game. You don't have the whole feel of the game. You don't have that whole, okay, I know this matchup isn't good. Well, how about this matchup? You don't have that process, because in a practice, it might be like 10, 15 minutes of a 2-hour practice. And then it's just that. There's no momentum building up to that. There's no build up. There's no progression towards it. And so in a game, you get that progression, and then you have to develop a sense of awareness in those situations, and then start to figure out, okay, we're going to be in this situation soon. I need to get ready for that.
Right. And I mean, you said it kind of at first, like, I'm worried about, these rookies getting hurt, because like their bodies physically, like maybe receivers and running backs a little different. They probably got hit a little bit in practice, but I can pretty much guarantee you that when Joe Burrow steps on the field in week 1, when Tua Tagovailoa steps on the field, whether that's week 1 or later in the season, whether Herbert steps on the field sort of halfway through the season, I guarantee you they will never have been hit in the NFL. Never. And it won't, like, they won't, like, they're going to get their bell rung the first time. Like, who does Pittsburgh play in week 1? Is it Cleveland?
Giants.
The Bengals play in week 1. I think it's the Browns.
Browns is week 2. It looks like Chargers in week 1.
Okay. Fast forward to week 2. You think week 2, after probably getting his ass kicked in week 1, that Joe Burrow sees Myles Garrett flying off the edge and he gets hit by Myles Garrett? You think he gets up without having his bell rung after that one? Probably not.
No, he's just going to get absolutely rocked, and he's going to have no idea what to do because he's never experienced that in a practice.
Right.
Because that's like the cardinal sin of being a defensive player in practice. You touch the quarterback, you're done. Mm-hmm. In a game, it's like, hey, we want to make this guy not want to play. Mm-hmm. You want to hit him so much that it mentally screws with him.
Yep. And that's always going to be what you're trying to do with rookie quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the other guys I wanted to talk about were the receivers. So I guess like the big 3 in this draft were Ruggs, Judy, and CeeDee Lamb. They're probably never in week 1 when they step on the field. They're never going to have been pressed and been physical with and had catches contested like they will in week 1. And like you see all these, fancy videos of Jerry Jeudy running these crisp routes or whatever. I just think that
you don't know what cornerback that's against.
Right. Exactly.
You don't know if it's like some random undrafted corner or some late round pick, but then when all of a sudden you get thrust into week 1 and you're going up against a guy who can actually play, it's good in the moment of, oh shit, what I did in college isn't going to work anymore.
Right. And I mean, it's like what I said with that Terry McLaurin video, Scary Terry. You guys sent that video and you were like, oh, is Cayne still high on this or still low on this guy after seeing this video? It was like, honestly, yeah, because I don't know who that corner is. And the fact that I don't know who that corner is tells me that's not that impressive.
And it's like, here's the training camp videos.
Yeah.
Like, teams are only going to tweet out what they want you to see.
Yeah. You don't see the drops. You don't see the botched routes. You don't see him getting lit up on
You don't see the
plays.
fuck-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see them getting jacked up.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know Terry McLaurin isn't a rookie or anything, but I just think in
He's
general,
still young.
With all these rookies, I think it will be hard to be set back for 4 weeks, because not only are you set back 4 weeks, but the 4 weeks that you're sort of getting used to it like you would in the preseason, they now actually count. So they actually contribute to your confidence and your learning curve and all that stuff. So I think you're going to see a lot of these guys get drafted pretty high. I think Joe Burrow is going to get drafted extremely high. I think CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy are going to get drafted super high. But I just think that you're going to see these rookies look like deers in the headlight. And deers in the headlight for their first, I'd probably say like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. And then you're going to see what you're actually going to get out of these guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Any last thoughts on this, or
just one thing in general about like teams tweeting out videos? There's always multiple ways to look at it, because I remember, and this one sticks in my mind because it's a Browns video. You have Baker Mayfield throws Odell catches it over 2 people. My question is, why the hell is Baker Mayfield making that throw into double coverage? Mm-hmm. He's in the pocket and he's getting happy feet knowing he can't be hit. Like, he's dancing around getting happy feet, and then he throws into double coverage. Like, while it's a great highlight for Odell, it makes you question, what the hell is Baker Mayfield thinking?
You always have to throw in a Baker Mayfield chirp, because I'm a big Baker guy.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'll show you when he throws 40 touchdowns this year. Watch it happen.
Is this another bet?
No. I don't have enough money to make another bet, man. Already dropped like $100 probably on the bet with Trey. My boy Tom Brady's going to come through for me, but probably won't come through for me, to be honest with you.
Scotty Miller's going to come through for me.
2020 is the year of disappointment, so we'll see how that happens. All right, just so moving on. So we have this next segment on best ball. So, Scott, you want to explain best ball real quick?
So best ball is fantasy football, but you only draft. Like, your lineup is made up of the best players. Like, you do not touch your lineup. You draft. the slogan, set it and forget it. All you do is draft. They'll take care of it for you. And I fucking hate best ball. Because the thing with best ball, you really don't have to know football.
No.
Play best ball. Like, you don't. You don't have to pay attention to anything that happens. You don't have to pay attention to players getting cut, traded, injuries. You don't have to pay attention to any of that. And also, it's like what I said earlier about with Scotty Miller. If I have a receiver going up against a team and he's been limited in practice and the team he's going up against has great corners, I might want to bench him and start a receiver like Scotty Miller who has a very favorable matchup. But in best ball, you can't do that. Everything is out of your control, and I don't like playing fantasy football that way.
Right. And I mean, a big part of it for me is like, I want to be able to do the research. I want to be able to, set my team the way I think it should be set. Partially because I've been screwed by ESPN's projections so much that I don't really trust them anymore. So I want to be able to do that myself, which is why I agree with you. I don't like the idea of best ball at all. It's kind of like the lazy man's fantasy. And it kind of takes like all the
kind of it is.
It kind of takes all the skill out of it. Like, yeah, you're drafting, but like how much of your fantasy successes come from drafting versus how much of your fantasy successes come from
versus
starting the right guys and picking guys up on waivers that you think are going to be great. Like, one of the things that I'll always remember is, do you remember a few years ago when Nick Foles played for the Eagles when he threw 7 touchdowns and tied the record against the Oakland Raiders?
Oh, yeah, against the Raiders.
I started Nick Foles that week. And if this was best ball, Tom Brady would have started over him. But guess what? I scored 56 points off of Nick Foles. And, I mean, with best ball, that wouldn't have been possible. And I know that's just one example, but it just seems to me like at that point, it's not your team. It's ESPN's team. And you're just, along for the ride.
You're just along for the ride.
Right. So, I mean, I guess there's not too much to talk about there.
Well, one thing I'm going to say, I want to be the reason I win. I want to be the reason that I lose.
Yeah.
I want to control my fate. And also, can you make trades between teams in best ball or no?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because one of the things that I like doing was, especially last year, Mike Evans has this insane, 40-point game.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next week, he is nothing. Right. I like to be able to play the stock market like that, trade him off, gain something, and then he just completely stinks. But if we're talking best ball, I don't know if you can make trades or not, but regardless, he would have been starting, and he would have gone me nothing.
Right.
So I want to be the reason I win. I want to be the reason I lose.
Right. I don't want to be sitting here on a Tuesday after everybody's played going, man, ESPN really screwed me with those projections. And so that's the thing that would rattle me, and that's the thing, honestly, that would take all the fun out of fantasy football for me.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we both agree on that. Both think it's a pretty stupid idea. I don't know why people play it unless you're, if you don't really like football that much. I don't know.
It's really only if you just want to draft.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So if you're a big draft guy, best ball might be for you. If you're an intelligent fantasy player,
human
then
being
probably is not best for you.
Probably the worst thing you could do.
All right, so I don't actually have the sound. We're about to do who the fuck is that guy? So who the fuck is that guy? All right.
Guy I never heard of. Guy I'll never draft. Somehow, some way, they will win you your fantasy league. Cayne, who do you got?
My pick is Demir Bird. Had to go with the hometown boy on this one.
I know. We've done this pick before. I've done an article on him.
Oh, really?
It's all good. It's all good. Just go.
Yeah. I mean, they signed him for a reason. I don't think Bill Belichick really just signs guys to sign guys like other teams do. The reason I think he'll be a great pick in fantasy this year is because Demir Bird is super explosive. I think he ran 4.2 at the 40 his combine or his pro day. So he's super explosive, but he'll also get you returns or points in the return game as well. So be on the lookout for Demir Bird in super late rounds. Demir Bird is a deep sleeper. So get ready to draft him because I think I mean, depending on what your GM has the settings put on, I think that Demir Bird can be a huge hack, even if it's just for a few weeks in fantasy.
I also like this pick because, as I put in the article, who the hell do the Patriots have at receiver?
N'Keal Harry, Mohamed Sanu, Julian Edelman.
All right, who's good and not hurt?
Julian Edelman.
There we go. There's a solid chance we see him creep up and become a starting receiver at some point throughout the year.
Absolutely.
That kind of speed. Whoever the quarterback is just needs that one person who they know can just torch someone deep.
Right. And the interesting thing about having Cam Newton, too, is a lot of the time when you get a new quarterback, no matter what the order was before he got there with receivers, your starting receivers are going to be the guys who he likes the most. And, I mean, Bill Belichick's a huge control freak, so I don't know if this is true there, but I know that for a lot of teams, the quarterback has a big say in who they want to throw to the most, because at the end of the day, if they like a guy who's maybe not starting more than a guy who is starting, obviously you're going to put the guy who the quarterback likes more in there.
Scotty Miller?
Not Scotty Miller.
I don't know. I called it 3 months ago. Anyway, my pick is Deontay Burnett.
Okay.
Do you
Explain.
know who he is? Do you know what team he plays for?
I've heard the name. Deontay.
As you Google it.
Yeah, I'm Googling it right now, full disclosure.
All right. Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver. Is because we have seen the injury bug take a massive bite out of the Eagles receiving core already.
Which wasn't a great unit to begin with.
It wasn't a great unit going into the year.
Right.
Now you have Alshon Jeffrey out. Jalen Reagor is hurt. Deshaun Jackson is fragile. We're going to be stuck with Greg Ward, Deontay Burnett, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
Yep.
Like, this is just last year's injury timetable with the Eagles just speeding up.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before Deontay Burnett becomes a starter just out of necessity.
Right. And, I mean, last year you saw it. I mean, I'm always going to say this. I hate the Cowboys, and it brought me – I'm not a huge Eagles fan, obviously being a Patriots fan.
But
I'm not a big Eagles fan. But it did bring me great joy to watch Dallas or Carson Wentz roll into Dallas in like week 16. What was it, week 16 or 17?
Week 16.
Week 16. And absolutely kicked Dallas's ass up and down the field when all of his starting. He literally had
Greg Ward,
3 tight ends starting and a former college quarterback as his receiving core. And Carson Wentz absolutely dotted them up. And I thought it was the greatest thing. And, I mean, that's honestly that moment. I know it's kind of off topic, but that moment is kind of the moment that I said, okay, like Carson Wentz, like he's for real.
He's legit.
He's, anybody who can do that is pretty impressive. And I mean, at the end of the day, it shut Dallas fans up for another season. So,
yeah. Anytime Cowboys fans are forced to shut up, it's a beautiful thing.
It's a great thing. No, but I like that pick too because, like you said, like it's kind of the same thing as the Patriots with Demir Bird. It's like, who else is there?
Yeah, just going to end up starting out of necessity because no one else is there.
Right.
In the Patriots case, because no one else is good. In the Eagles case, it's no one's really good and they're all hurt.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely look for Deontay Burnett, maybe even undrafted out of your fantasy league, probably undrafted.
He's not getting picked up.
So look for him on waivers. Look for Demir Bird. Demir Bird might be a late round pick, but also probably on waivers. Any last thoughts here for this fantasy show?
Check out the store. Check out the website. Buy a shirt. Trey said mine's on the way. You'll get yours when you hit big 50.
Yeah.
And, yeah. That's
Alrighty.
Really it.
Subscribe, guys. Take a look at all the articles we posted today. We posted about Joe Mixon. We posted about a bunch of different things. Take a look at Scott's absolutely asinine article on the value of running backs. And also take a look at my article on why that was, in fact, an asinine.
Why I'm a dumbass?
Yep, basically.
Okay.
I love you, but that was a steaming hot take, and you know it. Anyway, this was episode 27 of the Vendetta Sports Media Fantasy Show. I'm Cayne Lander again, at Cayne Lander on Twitter and Instagram. This is Scott Logush. And yeah, signing off.